Let's see. Right. Yeah, I don't know why Manycam hijacked everything. I'm like, couldn't even find my own video camera.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, I don't know why. I
I
got a
know every time.
free annual subscription, something like that.
Yeah, and you haven't used it yet. You haven't tried it.
This is the first time.
Yeah. So you're coming on Minicam now?
I'm going through Manycam. I had to open Manycam. That was the delay. I opened Manycam, then
Right.
I looked for it says Manycam virtual webcam, and my real webcam wasn't even plugged in. So that was I
Oh, see, I
unplugged
didn't
it.
even try that. I have the Minicam as well. I got such a good deal I couldn't turn it down.
I know, yeah.
I never use it, but I think it was like 19.99 for the top program or something.
They've made it a lot better too. They got a lot of features on it.
I
You
know.
can stream to
It's
Facebook, stuff like that.
it seems like such a hog though,
Yeah.
you know. But
Why don't you kick it off?
all right. Okay. Three, two, one. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. I'm Gary Mack and I'm joined by the great Rich Baxter. Rich, great to see you. We had a couple of weeks off there.
Thank you, Gary. Great to be with you as well. Nice to see you. Hope everything's going great. Yeah, we took a little sabbatical off. We took what, about 4 weeks off. We had a
Yeah.
hurricane mix in to the middle of it.
Yeah. That's right.
And
Some health issues, a hurricane, but now we're back and the races are heating up, Rich, as we go along here.
yeah. Every series seems like it's got something to play out now. I was looking at a game last night, that an important game that we're going to talk about in just a minute or two. But on the bottom of the screen, they kept showing, the updates for the different teams that were playing. And you had LA and San Diego playing one another. You had some other close matchups with the Braves. And it seems like now that it's getting down to the wire almost, that even if a bad team is playing a good team, that it might be watchable. Something might, happen where you'd want to see it.
Yeah, and some of the teams are starting. In fact, in a lot of the divisions, the leading teams are starting to dominate and starting to claim their title already. Almost looking at the Tampa Bay and Chicago have pretty big leads, as well as Houston. Though that's still surmountable. But our National League East is still up a dogfight, though it's like nobody seems to want to win that one.
Yeah, that's amazing the way, the top two teams, the Braves, the Phillies, stumbling, bumbling at times, not seeming like they're putting a full effort towards wanting to win a game. But of course they are. It's just that's baseball. When you want to win the most, sometimes you can't. The Phillies are living that life every game, it seems. And funny that you should mention that, because I was watching the broadcast of the Mets the other night, and they roasted the Phillies for starting a bullpen game when they're in contention to do something this
Mm-hmm.
year. They all brought up the fact that how could a team do that? And that's correct. I can't explain it.
Well, Rich, there's a lot of things that boy, I got to tell you, I shake my head at, especially with the Mets games, and they always have an excuse why they did this move, the manager, or why they did that one, but it just goes against logic. I mean, it's just I I don't, maybe the game's passed me by. I don't know, but I just don't get it. And then You brought up the Mets game, and they played the Yankees Friday night, and they were creaming the Yankees, and they were doing things that were old school. They had a drag bunt with the bases loaded, and that blew the game open. And I'm thinking, why don't we see more of this? This is what baseball is about. There was a slide at home plate and a terrible tag by the Yankees catcher. It was like he was in a bullfight and he was going Olay. He just stepped to the side and went to tag the guy on the helmet, and he ducked down and slid across home plate. It was one of the worst things I ever saw a catcher, and being an old catcher myself, I'm like, what are you afraid of? Get off the field if you're going to be that afraid. But I don't know. The game, it's not changing for the better. I don't believe. Um, they're all interested in velocity and and the fundamentals of the game. If you can hit the ball 500 feet or throw it 100 miles an hour, that's what they're interested in. It doesn't matter how many times you strike out or if you blow your arm out in a year or two. It doesn't seem like anybody cares anymore. It's all about power and velocity, and it's not good for the game because the game is so much more versatile.
Yeah, that's true. I did see that drag bunt that you were talking about. It was excellent there. And yeah, you don't see bunting that much in Major League Baseball anymore. And it was such an integral part of the game over the years in certain circumstances. I just wanted to bring this up real quick before I forget to. I get an email from time to time from a guy out in Las Vegas. He'll send me odds on different things during the baseball season. And this one was interesting during our sabbatical there at the end of August. He sent me this one. The manager in the MLB that's next to be fired, they do have odds on that at the sports books. If you're in a state that has that, or you go to Vegas itself. And guess who number one was?
I gotta guess it's gotta be Rojas in the Mets.
Yeah, it's Luis Rojas. He was
Good.
5-2 at the end of August. I'll just go through a couple more eye-opening managers here on that list. He was 5-2, being the favorite. Charlie Montoyo at 7-2. Brandon Hyde at 4-1. And this is an interesting one. Jace Tingler, the manager of San Diego, fourth on that list in Vegas,
Wow.
9-2. So he's I don't know, he's on a hot seat out there, it seems like.
Well, he's got all of that talent, and they're still, while they're leading in the wild card, they have fallen way behind the division. And you would think that team would be a lot better than they, playing a lot better than they are. But it could be that the Giants and the Dodgers are so much more ahead of everybody else in baseball that
Making him
it
look
doesn't matter.
bad.
Yeah, could be, but very interesting. Excuse me, very interesting there, and yeah, I I don't want to get into a Mets thing again, but they need a manager.
Yeah, they're gonna need probably an older manager, somebody that's a little more sage advice, maybe. I'm not a big fan of real young managers myself. I think that role has always gone to an older guy, somebody more seasoned to be a manager, so to speak, on a baseball team. Like not a grandfather figure, but somebody that the players can look up to, maybe like a fatherly type of figure, as opposed to someone that's closer to their age. So be interesting to see what happens there with the Mets.
Yeah, and you know, when you look out west, Rich, you see your old Philly manager. He's doing pretty good with San Francisco there, and he was practically run out of Philadelphia. And he's doing okay out in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's the odd thing about baseball. It happened before a few years ago with the Phillies. They sent the manager packing. He went to Boston, had a great run there. Of course, over in Cleveland, Terry Francona.
Mhm.
He looks like uh, um, a super manager over the years since the Phillies let him go, but couldn't do nothing with the Phillies. But I don't know. I think baseball basically comes down to chemistry on a team. That's my philosophy. And I think the Giants have that chemistry. Gabe Kapler's just there guiding it right now, but those players somehow um, establish some sort of chemistry with one another, I think. And that's
Mhm.
that's what makes a winning ball club more than anything.
Yeah, I agree, and they're for real because the Dodgers actually caught them a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, and yet they're back up, and they're back up by 2.5. So, uh, Giants are for real, and they've got a lot of good young players, and they did it quietly. They were
Yeah.
operating out there and making some trades and signing some minor leaguers and nobody thought that their minor league system was the best, but boy, lo and behold, something happened, something bloomed, and they made some great trades, and they're on top and playing just I think they've got their best record in baseball, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
looks like it.
amazing.
So uh, you know, looking pretty good, and Milwaukee's got a 13 game lead in the Central, so that's gonna be a interesting matchup, those couple of teams there when they
Yeah.
get to go head off. And how about the Dodgers, Rich? They won 90 games, and they're gonna be involved in a wild card game if they can't catch the Giants.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's pushing some of the teams in the NL East to have to win the NL East to get into the playoffs because they're so far ahead. I don't think that they would end up, any other team into the playoffs because of the records. But getting back to our main topic of today, September 12th, we all know what September 11th meant for the baseball world many years ago. 20 years ago, Gary, can you figure that it's been 20 years since that happened in New York City?
No, it's hard to comprehend. It really is. And I remember, I was actually in the parking lot at work, pulling in, ready to go to work, and when I heard, I had the late Don Imus on the radio, and he had Warner Wolf, the sports announcer.
Uh huh.
He was on. He called in because he lived down the block, and he was in his apartment, and he was yelling, about a plane hitting the World Trade Center. And of course, everybody thought with the first plane, when you first heard it, you didn't think about terrorism. I thought we thought about some private plane got off track or something and might have crashed into it. And then of course, after going into work, and then the second plane hit, and then and then of course the room is we didn't get a lot of work done that day. Though we did work, I had to say, but it was a little tense. I worked for the local government, so um, we were all kind of warned about staying in and all of this in the building and everything, because nobody, once they figured out it was terrorism, you didn't know if they were attacking federal. Are they going to go at the state? Are they going to go at the local governments? Everybody was on high alert, so it was a little nerve wracking for a couple of days there. Working for the government, but um, uh, yeah, it was something that wasn't you wouldn't want to go through, the planes flying overhead, then patrolling, our Air Force and Army and Navy planes flying around all the time, and helicopters, and it was rough. And of course it was so sad yesterday to see the family members and all of that, and to remember the people that had passed. And my wife had a lot of friends that passed on there. And uh you know I had a buddy that I worked with that actually survived that, and unfortunately he passed away last year, of something, of a heart attack. After, he retired, he was retired, I think, just about a year, and passed away. And it was such a shock, um because here he survives this thing,
Yeah.
and gets to retire, and he had all of these great plans for retirement, and passes away of something else. And he went like that. And it was very sad. But um we all have to remember what happened. And I was hurt yesterday by interviews they did with college kids that say, "Oh, well, we don't have to know what happened. We don't know who have to know who did it and all of this." And I'm thinking, no, you have to know, because there's a lot of evil people out there.
Yeah.
And if you start forgetting these things, then it all goes bad. And
And it may be an indication of that, softening of American pride amongst school people. Why would
yeah.
somebody say that? Why would, I'm glad I didn't watch it. I tried to, observe it from a distance. But yeah, there's young people in this world that, to say that is so stupid.
Mhm.
It's just ridiculous. This is your country. You should be proud of it.
Yeah. And I don't know, but we had a ball game last night too, and I think everybody was watching that. Apropos, the Mets and the Yankees played. Of course, the Mets played the first game back in New York. I gotta emphasize that, because everybody wants to push it on to the Yankees that helped heal the thing. But it was the Mets that were the first ones to play back in New York on that fateful year. And probably the most famous of home runs, or one of the most in baseball history, is going to go down. It's going to be Mike Piazza's home run in that game. Really Hollywood scripted, almost, you might say, or Hollywood couldn't write a better script, as Piazza home in the bottom of the eighth to give the Mets a 1-run lead. And Bobby Valentine's been quoted as saying that it was the loudest home run he's ever heard. The crack of the bat was different. He says he knew it as soon as he heard the crack of the bat. Um, so they had the Mets and the Yankees on, apropos as New York was attacked. And on last night's game,
Mhm.
and it was an exciting game, though the Mets did lose uh, on an error. And you know, I, the Mets are very good at doing these anniversaries and commemorations, and you know uh uh things that they do before the game ceremonies. They're very good at it, and they did a very good job of it last night, from what I could see. But MLB on Fox, oh, Rich, the commercials, I mean, everything. A couple of weeks ago, Jerry Kuzman had his number retired for the Mets. And if you watch that on the local SNY, the Mets station, uh, it was, you could see it, it was, they showed you the whole thing as it unfolds. And MLB on Fox kept going to commercials, or they went to their prepackaged videos, and it just broke up the ceremony for those watching at home. And I got to tell you, it was quite annoying because there was just no flow. And then to put in these pre-recorded packages in the middle of, if they wanted to do that, what they should have done was they should have had the pregame a half an hour early, and did their shtick with A Rod and Big Poppy and Frank Thomas and those guys. They should have done that before, and then played the whole ceremonies without any interruptions, without these guys commenting in their video game packages. But they didn't do it that way. They did it at the same time, and they had to interrupt these ceremonies with now, whether or not people that were there said it was beautiful, it flowed, um, but they cut into it at home, and we missed part of the ceremonies. And I it just it annoyed me, and I guess I don't know. And the announcers, the game of the week announcers, and I've said this before for years, they should keep their mouth shut, because they no sooner praise a player that, I mean, they were kissing the butt of Javi Baez like you wouldn't believe. John Smoltz, oh, he's magic with the glove. He's such a great base runner. And then what happens? He gets caught in a rundown, and he gets picked off a base because he ran too early. And then he loses the game by throwing the ball away. And then the excuses come. Well, it was a hop, and Lindor didn't get it to him, threw off the rhythm of the double play. And I'm thinking, well, then you don't throw to first base. If your rhythm's off, you don't throw it. And he threw it like 20 feet over the head of the first baseman, and the winning run scored. I don't want to dwell on that kind of stuff, but just game of the week announcers should just shut up. They don't know the team that well, and I don't care. When you watch them every other day or something, I'm seeing it every day. So don't
Yeah.
don't tell me anything.
And
But I'll get
then
off
the,
the soap.
then the Yankees had a terrible game the game before that, the opening game of the series. They couldn't do
Yeah.
anything right. They had errors.
Oh, they were
Uh,
throwing it. Yeah.
yeah, so it's sort of a back and forth thing in that series. And of course, tonight, as we're doing the podcast tonight, they're on ESPN's Game of the Week. I think 8 o'clock start with football competing with it as well. Opening weekend for football, so it's going to be a great weekend for sports fans.
Yeah, certainly is. And well, I don't know. Do you watch football anymore?
I keep an eye on it from time to time. I haven't really watched football over the years. I don't know many of the new players, but I'll tune in, for the epic matchups like the opening game with Brady. Keep an eye on the Eagles because I'm close to Philadelphia. So
Right. Right.
not that I root for them, but I'll tune in from time to time.
Yeah, that's I I didn't even know who won that first game until yesterday. I think I looked it up Thursday night, and to me, it's too early to play
Yeah.
football. It shouldn't start until sometime in November, I think.
I'm going to
And
try to be more of a hockey fan this year because over the years, I've followed hockey, then I stopped following it. And
me
last
too.
year and the year before that, I got a lot more games watched. So I'm slowly getting back into the hockey season.
Mhm. And is it the Devils that you would follow, or the Flyers?
I follow a lot of different teams, but it would be the local Flyers team. Devils are a little bit of a drive for me. So it would be, yeah, the local would be Flyers.
That's odd coming that you live in New Jersey, but the Flyers are your local team.
Yeah,
That's the way it goes sometimes, you know?
for sure. Another story in the MLB, of course, if you haven't heard it, the Brewers combined for a no hitter, and that's a combined no hitter with Corbin Burns and Josh Hader combined for that 3-0 victory over the Cleveland Indians in Cleveland. Progressive Field, the first time the Brewers have had a no hitter since 1987. So, that's a rare feat for them. And like Gary was talking about at the start of the show, they're doing wonderful this year. 33 games over 500. That's the best for them that they've ever been. So some of these small market teams are coming back on the radar.
And Rich, it broke a record, I believe, for the it was the ninth no hitter of the year, so it's the most no hitters in the year. Though I think it's actually the 10th because I'm counting Madison Bumgarner's 7 inning no hitter. But as you say, Milwaukee playing really good baseball this year, and they got to be, a team to watch in the playoffs as well because they've dominated pretty much since opening day, and they got a real good team.
Yeah, they do. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched too many games from them this year. I'm just like, Milwaukee to me is so Midwest and, foreign for me that I just haven't been able to tune in. But I know they've been good the last couple years, and good for them. We'll see if they can carry that into the postseason.
Foreign, Rich? Foreign to you, Rich?
Well, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know.
sort of like Detroit Tigers. I can't tell you the last time a few weeks ago I tuned into a game from them, and it must have been years since I've actually tuned in to a game. Of course, I have the MLB.TV, which you can tune into these different games from time to time. So that's what I'll do the rest of the season.
Yeah. And speaking of Detroit, now that you mentioned it, it popped into my mind. Congratulations to Miguel Cabrera, who hit his 500th home run while we were off, and is going after his 3,000th hit. And I think that should get him into the Hall of Fame. The combination, and he's just been a great player for so long. Congratulations to him. Just mention that, being that you mentioned Detroit, but I know what you mean. Try to sometimes tune in to games, and I don't know if you find this on MLB, but if you don't really know any of the players, you kind of wander over to another game because you don't really know these guys as well, and it's almost like watching a minor league game or something. Though I'll watch minor league games, but I'll watch them with the sound off, and it can be a little confusing sometimes. But uh, I know some of the Mets prospects and some of the numbers, so I can go by that. But minor league baseball's gotten better too with the video, so they'll put up a name tag or something. So
yes, it has. And another story in the news is, if the season ended today, what would the playoff implications be? And MLB had a graphic up, and I was looking at it, and I was kind of confused whether or not that was just like opinion or not. But apparently, the bracket was correct, and it's almost filled out. Like you said, some of these teams have a big lead on one another that, it's basically all filled out. And I had a graphic to go along with this, but somehow it closed on me. when I was trying to bring it up for our video viewers, which, by the way, let me segue into that just real quickly. We do the show on our podcast. If you're listening to us, please hit subscribe on wherever you're listening to us from. And also, we do the show on YouTube. So if you go over to YouTube, I got a brand new custom URL, which I reserved for us during our small hiatus that we took. It'll be youtube.com/C for channel / the Baseball Talk Radio Show. So now you can locate us right on YouTube without even Googling us. So that's our new address. youtube.com / C for channel, then another / the Baseball Talk Radio Show. So we're in on both of that.
And hit that like button too, because that'll make us smile. So
Absolutely.
go to YouTube and hit the subscribe button, smash that like button, and that little bell thing too. Hit that, and that'll let you know whenever a new
Why not?
episode's been released. And just click everything.
Follow and like the show, because Gary and I were talking about a drop in podcast numbers since we've done this year's shows, and we've previously enjoyed a lot more downloads on our podcasts and watches on our videos. So we know we have closing in on 150 subscribers for our channel. We want to thank you for that. So keep hitting that subscribe button and watching the show when you can, and you'll get the notifications when we come out with a new show so you can watch it. So
tell your friends and family.
Friends, family, spread the word. We want to, get back to where we were pre-pandemic, and Gary and I are baffled. We each do our individual shows, Gary with the Mets, mine with the Phillies. And another shameless plug, if I can, the baseballtalkradio.com site on the internet is a collection of a lot of great baseball podcasts that have been doing it for years, including Gary and I show, a number of other ones. And I've been saying that an update is coming out on it, and I haven't got around to it, but I brought it up on my phone the other day, and I still love the appearance of the website and things like that. I hand coded it. So check it out, baseballtalkradio.com.
It's a great site, so go check it out and see all kinds of podcasts on baseball, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yes, it is. So I'm still trying to find that graphic to put up, but looks like it's going to escape me for now. Maybe MLB updated their page. I'm not sure, but some of these teams have a hold on the playoffs already. So we're basically talking about wild card races for most of every division in baseball right now. And the NL East is one of them. Whoever wins the NL East is going to be the one to make the playoffs, obviously, and everything else is going to be spoken for, I think, Gary.
Yeah, you're right, Rich. Like you said, and we said earlier, Tampa Bay's got a nice size lead. I think it's 8 or 9 game lead. The White Sox have an 11 game lead. Houston's got a 5.5 game lead. That could be a little contestable there. I guess you could still contest it. But for the most part, it is in the wild cards. As you're showing now in the video, Boston has the wild card lead in the American League, up by a game over the Yankees. And Toronto, who is probably the hottest team in baseball right now, Rich, they swept the Yankees in a 4-game series, and just took a doubleheader yesterday from the Baltimore Orioles, and have been red hot, 9-1 over their last 10 games. and have now closed the gap with the Yankees and are tied for that second wild card. So that could be interesting. Oakland is there 2 games out. Seattle is still in it at 2 games out, and then it drops off to Cleveland at 9. Um, in the National League, it's the same kind of thing. San Francisco and the Dodgers are still that's a tight race. We'll still be watching that. I think there's a 2.5 game lead by the Giants.
Look at that.
Milwaukee's up by 13, I think. I'm sorry, Rich. Go ahead.
Look at that wild card up 15 games. The
Yeah.
Dodgers with 90 wins on the season already, and we still have kind of a long way to go.
Yeah.
You know, they could get 110 wins
and beat a wild card and get eliminated.
It's amazing. So yeah, the rest of the NL, I doubt they're going to be able to catch that for the wild card because there's only like 21 games remaining, I think, for most teams, thereabouts, somewhere around there. So it's going to be a race to see if they can, for our 2 teams that we're most interested in, who can catch Atlanta here with only 75 wins.
Right. Right. And the Mets are, I think, 5 games back in the Eastern Division, and the Phillies are 3.5. So Atlanta could still be caught. But we'll see. It's like nobody wants to win it. I mean, Atlanta got red hot, grabbed the lead, and then Philly got red hot and closed the gap, and then they started losing. The Mets, we know what happened to them. They completely collapsed. They had a 3.5 game lead. Now they're 5 games back, so they collapsed 8.5 game. They lost in the standings essentially in a matter of 3 weeks to 4 weeks in August. It was just a disaster. But yeah, I mean, but are any of these teams good enough to beat the Giants or Milwaukee? I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking. And I was just going to say the Phillies actually don't deserve to make the playoffs. And that sounds a little stupid, but they don't. You know, that they have a paper thin bullpen. They have had it all year. Management knows it. Ownership knows it. They brought a Band-Aid in or two, not enough. It's the same old story. And I know in New York, you've had your upsetments with your favorite team as well. And it's sort of like the same old story.
And Rich, I agree 100% with you. The Mets don't deserve to be there either. And the frightening part about it is that if they, and I'm talking from a Mets point of view, and I think you would agree with me with the Phillies, if either one of those teams were to win a division now, all of the problems seem to go away then. Then then management begins to think, oh, wait a second, we're better than we thought we were. That was a fluke. And it's not a fluke in the long run. Your bullpen is still paper thin. You're still not hit. Your offense is still not hitting. It's gonna rate. Just because you get hot at a certain time and you win a division doesn't mean you're gonna go very far. You need to be more more well-rounded, and I think it's a bad thing that if either one of those teams were to go on and win the division, because I think the mindset wouldn't be there to improve as much as they need to improve.
Yeah, sort of like putting a Band-Aid on a big wound. So
It.
some little collectors news we have assembled for you today. The game that we were off around the same time on the podcast, the Field of Dreams game, of course, MLB. Nearly 5 dozen jerseys worn by the Yankees and the Chicago White Sox were sold through MLB auctions to raise money for the center's work. And that center is the Dubuque Cancer Center in Iowa. So they were the beneficiary of the jersey auctions and some other things that the MLB put up on the web to sell. And the biggest one, Gary, the return the most money was Aaron Judge's size 48 jersey, 70 bids and sold for $33,590.
Wow. Wow. That was a cool thing. The Field of Dream game. Um, and they're going to do it again next year. But, Rich, MLB in its wisdom, they do a good thing, but then they kill it, it's killing something else. And what it hurt the Little League Classic game that they were doing because nobody had interest in that. Uh, they got to separate these things more. They have to do the Field of Dream games sooner or something. People love these different little special events, but you can't put them so close together where one is going to kill the other. So, um, they've got to do some thinking on that. But it was pretty cool, and I'm glad they're going to make it a classic every year. I think it'll be good for the game to go to a small town in Iowa like that, and uh, you know, um, they've already started tearing down the ballpark though, so they have to rebuild it again. Or certain things were not made to last, which I don't understand why they did it that way, but it was cool if you watched it. I mean, even parts of the ballpark that they had built to be permanent and stuff. They made it look old fashioned. It really, it was pretty neat. It really was a pretty neat thing to see. I have to say, even though the Yankees played.
Very cool. Yep. Enjoyable. I'm glad they're going to do it at least another year, maybe more than that. We'll see. And it brings back, old school baseball, like you said, back into reality and combine sort of that movie that they made of the same Field of Dreams movie. So yeah, it was very cool, and I'm looking forward to it myself next year, and hopefully the COVID will be extinct by then. But let's share little numbers with our audience out here for our listeners, and of course, here's our plays over the last year, and took a nosedive there when we took a week, a month off, rather 4 weeks off. But we hope you come back and join us for more shows. Here's our top episodes and our listeners. And Gary, we like to go over this with our listeners as well. Tell them a little bit about them, who's tuning into our show. And 68% of you are tuning in on our podcast side through anchor.fm from Apple Podcasts. So that number seems to fluctuate a little bit with our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, very interesting.
This is an amazing geographic location. 86% of our listeners are from the US right now. We have a huge United Kingdom following, 8%. And thank you very much from Great Britain for all your support for this podcast and tuning in. And Gary, I have a special announcement. I didn't even tell you at the beginning of the show. I wanted to keep it for this segment. I'll be going to the UK in just a month, going over for vacation, and I plan to visit some of the UK fan sites, a couple Phillies ones, and anybody I can dig up in the next month before I leave. I'm going to try to maybe get an interview with them over there, and maybe we can have it played back on our show when I get back.
That'll be very cool. Well, have a good time. Yeah, that's great news.
So just to wrap up, here are listeners from anchor.fm. Gender 79% male, and we have a big 21% contingent of the ladies that are listening to us out there as well. So thank you very much, ladies, for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you. That's a nice size audience.
Yes, indeed. And of course, our age groups here 18 to 22s. Come on, we got to get on board with you. You're barely breaking 3, 4, 5% with us. So maybe we're a little too old for them, but
Maybe.
still fun to do the show. And we like to share the stats with our listeners out there. Now, if you want to get in touch with us, I didn't have many people get in touch with us when we were off for a month. Rich at baseballtalkradio.com, you can reach me at, or Gary at baseballtalkradio.com. You can reach Gary, send us a message. If you want to talk about something, have a topic brought up, we'll be glad to get, it on the show for you.
Yep. And don't forget, we have a Facebook page, the Baseball Talk Radio Show. So go check that out. And what else, Rich?
Our Patreon page, and of course, on our main page at anchor.fm, you can find the sponsor button. So we would love to have you as a sponsor. A lot of podcasts have a lot of listeners, and we even offer certain things on our Patreon page if you go to a certain level. So check that out. We'd like to pay off on that. So you want a mug or a shirt or something like that, we have that set up. And we're back in the podcasting realm here after taking a few weeks off. It feels pretty good to get back on that bike, Gary.
Yes, it certainly does, Rich. And we've got, as you said, we've got our own individual podcast. Mine is Mets Musings, and Rich's Phillies Talk, Fighting Phillies, and you can check that out at baseballtalkradio.com.
Yes, indeed. Well, we want to thank you for tuning into this podcast. You just have a great week coming up, and we'll have a lot more shows on our next podcast of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. Take care, everyone.